Inside a warm, bustling diner, a young black woman stood up to defend a lone Hell's Angel against two police officers. Her actions would cause the entire town to turn against her. But what happened next would leave them all in tears. Before we dive into the full story, tell us where you're watching from. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Naomi Carter's hands were red and rough as she scrubbed the diner's worn countertop for the third time that morning. The breakfast rush, if 4 tired farmers and a pair of truckers even counted, had come and gone. And now the old diner sat in quiet stillness. Only the soft, lazy squeak of the ceiling fan echoed through the thick summer air. She glanced toward the outdated cash register, mentally counting the bills inside. Each click made her stomach twist tighter. It wasn't enough, not nearly. Not for the overdue electric bill buried deep in her bag, with past due stamped in angry red letters, and certainly not for the ever-mounting cost of her father's medications. Just a few more months, she whispered under her breath, tucking a tight curl behind her ear. It was the same hollow promise she'd been telling herself since the day she packed up her life and left Atlanta for the slow, quiet unraveling of Willow Creek. Outside, Main Street sat silent, the kind of stillness that comes from jobs lost and hope long gone. Naomi felt every shuttered storefront like a weight pressing down on her chest. First, the factory closed. Then the hardware store. Now Carter's diner, her family's legacy, was bleeding out little by little while she fought to keep it breathing. The bell above the front door jingled. That sound used to bring her father joy before the stroke took his voice and paralyzed half his body. Naomi turned, cleaning rags still in hand, and froze. A man stood in the doorway, tall, broad, his body wrapped in a dusty black leather jacket worn thin by time. His beard was thick, gray, and wild. Tattoos wound their way up his arms, telling stories Naomi couldn't begin to imagine. But it was the patch on the back of his jacket that gripped the room like a vice. A grim reaper clutching a scythe. A Hell's Angel. The few customers inside instantly stiffened. Mrs. Worthington, sitting near the window with her crossword puzzle, clutched her pearls with a quiet gasp. Joe Larkin, a farmer Naomi had known since childhood, set his coffee down with a hard clink and shifted in his seat. Even the radio crackled and faded into static for one breathless moment, as if the entire diner had held its breath. The biker walked slowly toward the counter. His heavy boots thudded against the linoleum like war drums. He chose the stool farthest from everyone else, his wide shoulders hunched like he wanted to disappear. Naomi heard her father's voice in her head, gentle and firm. Everyone's money spends the same at Carter's. Still, her heart pounded as she wiped her palms on her apron, grabbed a cloudy plastic menu, and poured a glass of water. "Welcome to Carter's," she said, forcing her voice into the same easy rhythm she used with every customer, even though tension crawled along her skin. "Today's special is chicken fried steak with mashed potatoes, fresh this morning." The biker looked up, and Naomi's breath caught. His eyes, pale blue and ringed in red, looked like they hadn't seen sleep in days. They didn't match the hard edges of his face. These weren't the eyes of a man spoiling for a fight. They were the eyes of someone who was losing one. "Coffee?" he said, voice low and rough as gravel, but with a softness underneath. "Black. Whatever's quickest from the kitchen. Been on the road since before sunrise." As Naomi poured from the battered pot, she noticed his hands, large, calloused, rough, but trembling ever so slightly. A hospital bracelet peeked out from under his sleeve. Her chest tightened. She'd seen that look before. Too many times in the hospital's cancer ward, the look of someone holding on by a thread. "Long road still ahead?" she asked casually, setting the cup in front of him. He nodded slowly. "Heading back to Willow Creek Medical," he said, voice thick with exhaustion. "My daughter." The words cracked apart like ice under pressure. He looked down, eyes fixed on the swirling black of his coffee. Naomi swallowed hard past the lump in her throat. She didn't ask any more questions, just smiled gently and said, "Toast and eggs, coming right up. 6 minutes, tops." As she turned toward the kitchen, Naomi could feel the stares from across the room. Suspicious, disapproving, fearful. She knew exactly what this kindness would cost her. But she also knew what was right. And Naomi Carter had never been one to back down from doing what was right. The bell above the door jingled again, sharper this time, slicing through the low hum like a knife. Naomi didn't need to turn around to know who had entered. She felt it in the air, the sudden stiffness of the room. Mrs. Worthington hunched lower over her coffee. Joe Larkin's chair scraped loudly as he shifted in place. Officer Dean Harper and Deputy Laura Miles had walked into Carter's diner, badges gleaming in the dusty morning light. Dean strolled to the counter with the swagger of a man who knew the town bent to him. His boots tapped a slow rhythm across the floor, eyes locking instantly onto the biker hunched over his mug. Naomi saw the slow, nasty smile creep across Dean's face. "Well, well," he said, loud enough for the whole diner to hear. "Don't see your kind around Willow Creek too often." The biker didn't look up. He sipped his coffee, hands steadier now. Naomi's grip tightened on the counter's edge, a flush rising to her cheeks. "Just grabbing some breakfast, officer," the man said quietly, his tone respectful. Laura stood a step behind Dean, her stance rigid, her eyes darting with unease. Between Naomi and the biker, Officer Dean Harper leaned an elbow onto the counter. A deliberate move, invading the space with authority and menace. "Maybe we ought to check his ID, Naomi," Dean said with a smirk, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Make sure he's not one of those reapers we've been getting bulletins about." Naomi's heart was pounding. The man had done nothing, and already Dean was circling him like a vulture. The biker moved slowly, carefully, reaching into his jacket. But before his fingers even touched anything, Dean's hand dropped to the holster at his side. Naomi stepped forward, her voice sharper than she intended. "He's a paying customer, Dean, just like anyone else who walks through that door." Dean turned his head toward her, his grin widening with mocking delight. "Same? That's rich." He gestured to the patch on the biker's jacket, the Grim Reaper holding a scythe. "You do know what that means, Naomi. Drugs, guns, trouble." The biker finally looked up, locking eyes with Dean. His gaze was calm, but firm. "You don't know a damn thing about me," he said, voice low and even. Dean let out a humorless laugh. "I know enough, and I sure as hell know better than to trust a man wearing that death patch." Naomi's hands were trembling now, but she didn't back down. She could feel the weight of every stare in the diner, some silently pleading with her not to escalate, others waiting to see which way she would turn. She thought of her father's words again, the ones he'd repeated to her for years.